Bong Joon-ho is probably the most famous Korean director working today. He stands at the top of the Korean film mountain alongside Lee Chang-dong and Park Chan-wook, but unlike those other guys, Bong Joon-ho has actually won an Oscar.
Bong Joon-ho!
But are all Bong Joon-ho films excellent, or has he made some missteps on his climb up the Korean film mountain? To answer that question, I'm going to rank all of Bong Joon-ho's films from F tier all the way up to S tier. But before I do, please subscribe to Cinematech. I've got more tier lists of Korean directors coming soon, and I don't want you to miss them. Let's get this tier list chronologically going with Barking Dogs Never Bite, Bong Joon-ho's first feature-length film. Barking Dogs Never Bite begins with two parallel storylines. One of a woman who works for the government who begins to notice that a lot of people's dogs are going missing, and the other of a man who is making those dogs go missing. The stories of the man and woman intertwine when, in a twist of fate, the dog-hating man must find his wife's dog or else. And first off, let me just say that this movie is not for dog lovers. There is an opening disclaimer that lets you know that no dogs were harmed in the making of this film, but that's going to do little to assuage your shock when you see some of the things that happen to dogs in this film. Beyond that though, there are a lot of things to like about Barking Dogs Never Bite. In typical Bong Joon-ho fashion, this film is critical of particular aspects of Korean society. The lead male character, for example, is really into following the rules, which to me aligns him with the military dictatorship that used to rule over Korea. The fact that this character killed dogs because they inconvenienced him is probably not a coincidence. I also really like the minimally used jazz score, which really underlined the chaos in certain sections of the film. And Bong Joon-ho had no problem seamlessly borrowing aspects of horror aesthetics and inserting them into the more creepy and unsettling parts of the film. Also, shout out for setting up the idea that whenever someone is carrying around green onions, that means a dog is in danger. If you've seen the film, you know what I'm talking about. On the downside though is the structure of the film. Bong Joon-ho loves for his films to start out in one way, think of films like Mother or Parasite, and then have them shift into something drastically different. That narrative technique is also applied here, but less effectively. The first half of the film is largely concerned with setup and metaphor, but doesn't have a solid narrative through line. Compare that to Parasite, where the first half is both setting up the characters while telling a tight and deliciously devious narrative, and the fault of Barking Dogs becomes all the more apparent. It's not bad, but it is less than. That said, by the end of the film, I was fairly impressed with this as a debut feature, so I'm gonna slot Barking Dogs Never Bite into the B tier. Next up is Memories of Murder, Bong Joon-ho's adaptation of police trying to catch a serial murderer in rural 1980s Korea. The police are depicted as brutal thugs who would rather plant evidence and beat a confession out of you rather than actually do their jobs. Enter So Tae-young, a young detective from Seoul who has some more enlightened ideas as to how police work should be carried out. There are a lot of positives to this film. Chief among them are the character arts of the aforementioned Seo Tae-yeon and Park Do-man, who you will recognize as Song Kang-ho, the dad and driver from Parasite. Each character enters the film with their own ideas about how police work should be done. Park Do-man likes beating confessions out of people, and Seo Tae-yeon is all about following the actual evidence. However, as the film progresses, Park Do-man starts to realize that his methods are pointless because it doesn't actually prevent future murders from happening, and Seo Tae-yeon becomes frustrated when building up all of the evidence possible doesn't lead to a conviction. That leads him down the road of trying to beat confessions out of people. It's a fascinating double switch to watch and easily one of the best parts of the film. Couple that with some incredible yet muted cinematography, excellent performances from the rest of the supporting cast, and some subtle jabs thrown at the military dictatorship, and you've got yourself one heck of a film. At this very second, I'm going to slot Memories of a Murder into the A tier, although I think if I were to watch it a few more times, it might be able to inch its way into the S tier. Next up is The Host, Bong Joon-ho's first foray into genre filmmaking. The Host is all about a giant mutated creature wreaking havoc in and around the Han River. The monster kills a bunch of people and then kidnaps some to eat later. One of those kidnapped people is Park Hyun-seo, the daughter of lead character Park Gang-do, who is once again played by Song Kang-ho, the guy from Parasite. The main narrative thrust of the film revolves around Park Gang-do, along with his brother, sister, and father, attempting to rescue his daughter. Standing in their way is a cavalcade of government agencies who quarantine the area around the Han River and who are also trying to capture the family because the family potentially has been exposed to a virus. Watching this film after 2020 hits a little bit different. The positive aspects of the film have to do with how the CGI monster was handled. I think Bong Joon-ho knew the CGI effects for the monster wouldn't be great, so he took great care to minimize how the monster was shown and how often it appeared. I love when a filmmaker uses their head. Unfortunately, not much else about the film worked for me. The aforementioned CGI really shows its age, the characters felt flat and one note to me, and the ending of the film left me feeling very unsatisfied. Of Bong Joon-ho's early work, I think The Host is the most conventional, and as a byproduct of that, it is the least interesting. So I'm going to put The Host in the C tier. Next on the list is Mother, Mother, Bong Joon-ho's return to the crime genre. But instead of focusing on corrupt cops and how they can't catch a serial killer, we instead focus on a mother who takes the law into her own hands after corrupt cops accuse her son of a murder he says he didn't commit. Kim Yi-ja is absolutely incredible as the aforementioned mother, and watching her transform from a somewhat helpless bystander as her son is arrested to a badass seeking out justice is pretty remarkable. And it is also foundational for the shifts in narrative structure and aesthetics. Bong Joon-ho again shows you two different films in one, beginning with the movie about a grief-stricken mother trying to get her son out of prison the legal way, and then shifting to a film where the mother takes the law into her own hands. The shift is more subtle than in a film like Parasite, and for that I think this film is all the more alluring. I remember sitting up at one point and thinking to myself, hey, wait a minute, this feels like a David Fincher film all of a sudden. Layer on top of that the pretty incredible plot twist, and we should have an all-timer on our hands, right? Right? Well, no, because unfortunately the film doesn't really hit its stride until it transforms into the neo-noir thriller. So for the first part of the film, I found myself only a little bit engaged with what I was seeing. I will admit that I think this is probably a film that could squeak into the S tier if I were to watch it a few more times, but for now, I feel very confident putting Mother in the A tier. Barreling down the tracks next is Snowpiercer, Bong Joon-ho's second foray into science fiction and absolutely his best genre film to date. The film uses the frankly ridiculous premise of a train running on an infinite loop around the world after a man-made catastrophe froze the planet as a literal and metaphorical vehicle for class warfare and criticizing capitalism. For the full duration of the film, we follow a group of impoverished people as they fight their way to the front of the train in the hopes of changing their tragic circumstances and for rewriting the power structures that has kept them in poverty. And oh my, is this film a bloody delight. Much in the way that Bullet Train's cramped confines helped improve and distinguish the action from other blockbusters, Snowpiercer shows you exactly what it means to go through your enemy instead of around them. As a genre film, Snowpiercer hits all of the right notes, and to me, it's executed pretty well. The narrative twists are welcome, as is the development of Chris Evans' character through each bloody exchange, and this film contains one of the best lines I can remember from recent history.
I know what people taste like. I know that babies taste best.
If that doesn't underscore how terrible the abject poverty and desperation faced by these people was, I don't know what will. All things considered, Snowpiercer is another incredibly strong Bong Joon-ho film, and I've got no problem putting it squarely in the A tier. Next on the list is the Netflix original film Okja, and I've actually talked about this film on the channel before. I have an entire video discussing how Okja functions as a vegan film, so if you want to check that out, the link is in the description box below. The story of Okja is a pretty straightforward one, to the point where I think we could consider Okja a children's film if not for all of the profanity.
I'm fucking here, goddammit!
Essentially, a girl named Mija is separated from her best friend, a giant super pig named Okja, and she does everything in her power to get Okja back. Standing in her way is a giant corporation that wants to do all kinds of terrible things to Okja before finally turning her into food. And I'll be honest with you, there are parts of this film that I have trouble watching. The ending especially, with its mask-off look at factory farming, is nothing short of tear-inducing. But on my most recent rewatch of Okja, I was most struck by the cinematography. I think this might actually be the best looking Bong Joon-ho film. Beyond that, I love the characterization of Okja as a sentient, empathetic, and intelligent creature, all necessary to make the finale of the film really hit hard. I think the over-the-top ridiculousness of Jake Gyllenhaal and Tilda Swinton's performances are pitch perfect, and Paul Dano just being a chill dude who is trying to save some animals will never not make me smile. This is another Bong Joon-ho film that I find very little fault with, but since I don't consider it to be one of the best films of all time, I must slot it squarely in the A tier. And then there was Parasite, the 2019 film that absolutely shocked the world when it won 4 Academy Awards, including Best Picture.
Parasite.
This was actually my first Bong Joon-ho film, and I want all of you to get into the comments and let me know which film of his you saw first. As for the film itself, holy good gosh darn. This is another Bong Joon-ho film that is one movie for the first half and becomes a very different film for the last half. Except with Parasite, there is no subtle divide. This film hits like someone falling backwards down the stairs and hitting their head on concrete. Parasite operates much in the same way as Snowpiercer in that it is about class struggle, but its approach does not center on revolution, nor is its finale in any way optimistic. The front and back end of the train has been replaced by the geographic divide of being high on the hill versus living in a basement that literally floods with shit, and the ending of the film will leave you with an appropriate sense of impossibility. Foundational to the film are the performances of the main family played by Song Kang-ho, Choi Wook-sik, Park So-dam, and Jang Yi-jin. Each one is their own fully realized character that brings something different to the initial plot and are a joy to watch, Choi Wook-sik and Park So-dam especially. Beyond that, there are so many praiseworthy elements to Parasite that it's almost impossible to mention them all. The cinematography, the script writing, the editing, the other performances from the rest of the cast. It's all just incredible. This film is truly, truly firing on all cylinders, and it's one of the very few films I think we can all agree on where the Oscars got it right. Parasite is, without a doubt in my mind, an S-tier film. Do you agree with my rankings? Let me know in the comments down below. And if you want some more movie tier magic, check out this other video I made off to the left.